Hi guys, it's Joe here from Rufio. I'm bringing you an updated Prank Kids profile. I'm not 100% perfect with this deck, so there are probably better options out there. However, I thought I should bring you it now that I've got the deck complete. Things have changed obviously since the release of Roxy, so we need to look at what the options we have. I tried to keep this as pure as possible. So we've not included the Thunder Dragon engine, that kind of thing. So we'll go with the more pure variant. And without too much further ado, let's get stuck in. So we've got 3 fansies. I think this is pretty much standard. The same with 3 dropsies, 3 lampsies, and finally 3 Roxys. This is going to speed the deck up a little bit. It does give you access to some different kind of engines, being level 4, and a few other bits and bobs, but we won't go too much into the detail with that. That's all down to personal preference. So yeah, we're now running the 12 Prank Kids monsters. Again, I think this is going to add a lot of consistency. It's really nice to see this now finally out, and people can actually start really sort of testing how they want to play this deck. It is sort of still up in the air as well. Although we've seen it in the OCG, I think the OCG format is so different to ours, it's kind of hard to just sort of rely on what they're doing to kind of guide our own. It is very, very different. The way they play is different. The cards that are banned and limited is different. So we're kind of just trying some spicy different ideas. So hopefully they sort of pay off. And you guys won't disagree with these choices, but here we go. So I've not got any King of the Swamp, partially because I actually don't own any, and I couldn't pick any up on the day, I'll be straight with you. So we've included a different engine. So I've put these 2 in. I think maybe you should have a second Prisma if you're going to run this. But being able to search this is quite nice. Obviously this is good for your fusions, that kind of thing. So I think those 2 is a cool little element. It does speed up the deck kind of indirectly with some of the other cards that can search these. This obviously searches this. So it's just some ideas, something you could try. Maybe not a fan, that's absolutely fine. You could run King of the Swamp instead. Now this isn't intended to be like a budget variant, so we have got some slightly more expensive cards in there. However, there are of course always budget options for you. I think King of the Swamp and it might be good in place of Prisma and Stratos. I think the Prank Kids monsters are pretty standard at price range. We do have 3 Ash Blossom in here. These could be, I guess, anything. Ash is just the most versatile out of all the hand traps, so I truly believe that this is probably the one to go with if you've only got space for 3, which this is a really tight deck, by the way. It took me a while to sort of work out my ratio, so I think that this will be fine as it is. 3 Ash is pretty much perfect. The deck is still kind of slow. It has been sped up a little bit, so that's what we're trying to do, is keep it as consistent as possible, so that even if you have to grind a little bit, you've at least, you know you're consistently going to get the cards you need to see. And also you're going to want to interrupt your opponent as much as possible. And yeah, this is definitely still the strongest hand trap. So that's it for monsters. We're on to our spell lineup. So we've got 3 Prank Kids place. You need to see this card, and so with that we've got 2 Terraforming. That's like having 5 copies of the card in there. Some are playing, I think, Fusion Recycling Plant. It was something that I toyed with. But again, there just wasn't the space, and you'll see as we go through the deck why this is so tight. We've got triple poly. It would be nice to have more ways to be able to search this and that kind of thing, which is where King of the Swamp comes in. But now that the deck's sped up a little bit, I think you will get to these a little bit quicker. And being a 3-of, you should really see in your opening hand, ideally at least. Of course, it doesn't always work that way, as you very well know. We've got triple instant fusion. We're sticking with that. I think 3 is, again, it's a right number. You want to get those fusions out as quickly as possible. 1,000 life points is really not a big deal to get you where you need to be. You want to climb as quickly as possible and get into those cool links where you can start blitzing your opponent. We've got 2 pranks. Again, space is so tight. I was originally running 3 of these in the older build. We don't really have that luxury now, so I think 2 is absolutely fine as it is. This is a card that I really wanted to be able to play 3 of, and that's Pandemonium. The fact that it's quick play obviously means it effectively is like a pseudo trap, kind of go off in either player's turn, so it's kind of nice to be able to interrupt your opponent and give them a bit of grief during their turn, make a fusion summons, that kind of thing. 3 would have been nice. I've only really got space for 2. Again, if you cut the Stratos Prisma engine, that kind of thing, then you will actually have the space for the extra cards, but it just depends how you want to play it. On to the rest of our spells now. I've got Triple Call by the Grave. I think this card being back at 3 is really, really important for this. There's a lot of decks out there that really benefit from the Grave play, and being able to stop that's really important. I think hand traps can really, really hurt you as well. Like I say, it's not the quickest deck, so to go with as few interruptions as possible is really ideal, and so the Triple Call by the Grave kind of helps facilitate that. It also means that given that we try and go first, for the most part, you're going to want to be able to combo off and set one of these and know that you can actually stop your opponent from playing, and that was part of the reason I think that it got hit in the first place, so definitely take full advantage of that. The rest of the deck is just one-offs. So you've got one Upstart Goblin. Again, giving your opponent 1,000 life points to draw one card to add some consistency. It makes it a 39 card deck. Your opponent gets to start with 9,000 life points. When you look at it like that, it kind of works. And obviously, once you've been searching out your deck and you've been hooking stuff out the whole game, this is just going to help you draw into those engine cards that you need to see. It's not one of the cheaper options. It's very expensive for a common, but I think it's kind of important. But again, you could cut that for more consistency in terms of the numbers of cards that you're running. We've got one rotor so that we can search the Stratos ideally, or the Prisma if Stratos has already come up. And then we've got a Hero Lives, again another one that you can open it turn 1 if you need to. Of course, going into time, this is probably the kind of card you'd probably want to cut. But yeah, it's fine, it gets you there, it gets to where you need to be, and then of course you can start your engine from there. It just gives you another starter option. So that's those two. We've got one Super Poly. I wanted to be able to include this, A, because it just gives you another option to do stuff during your opponent's turn, which is kind of nice. The fact that they can't respond to it is also really, really handy. And then we've included Mudragon in the extra deck as another option, again, to just out problematic cards from your opponent's board, and hopefully you can see what you need to see to sort of get that going. And then I've just got the one copy of Prankid's Plan. This was something that I kind of wanted to run at 2, but again, the space being so tight, and with the inclusion of the text that I've included, it really wasn't space. But again, if you were to cut that hero engine, you would have the space for the extra one potentially to go in there. That's if the main deck is a solid 40, if I remember correctly, if my maths is all good. So yeah, I think that's pretty much spot on as it is. No side deck today. Again, I've not played with this enough to make a really good decision on that. So I think we'll just go straight onto the extra deck. So we've got 2 copies of Prankid's Bow Wow Bark. These fucking names are stupid. Again, I think 2 is fine. I don't think a 3rd is needed. I think 2 is perfect. You don't really want 1 because you want to be able to make it multiple times and sort of get that resolved. We do have 3 copies of Prankid's the chicken thing. Yeah, you want to use that as much as possible. This is really like the best card in the extra deck, I think, in terms of getting your plays going and grinding through and that kind of stuff. This is really, really important for making your plays how you need to make them. 3 is absolutely perfect, definitely not less. We've got one Prankid's Rip Roaring Roaster. These names are just killing me. Yeah, this is really, really good. Just being able to pop a ton of cards is really, really handy. You know, being able to destroy that back row is absolutely sweet and really important. It also is going to help you, I mean, especially with like stuff like Altergeist floating about, and there's a lot more decks that set in against Sky Strikers. If you find yourself in that kind of matchup, this gives you a really good advantage, especially when you consider multi-roll and that kind of thing. You're either going to force them into activating stuff, you know, things like that, sort of preemptively to try and deal with it. So it's really good for that. We move on to the fusions. We've got 2 Rocket Ride. I think 2 Rocket Ride is absolutely fine. I don't think a 3rd is needed. I think 1 would be too few. And much the same with Prankid's Wishy Washy Weather Wash, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what Weather Wash or whatever. This is just, again, another card that's going to get those engines going for you. You kind of want to see it. You don't want to have 3, you just don't have the space for it for a start. But also, you know, I think 3 would be too much anyway, and 1 definitely wouldn't be enough. And then to round off the rest of our Prankid's extra deck cards, we've got the Battle Butler. Prankid's Battle Butler is just absolutely awesome. Again, it's like a walking Regeki. So between that and Rip Roaring Roaster, you can just absolutely decimate their field, depending on what you're playing against. I think 1 of these is perfect. I don't think you need more than that. We do have a few interesting choices. I've got 4 choices left. These were just cards that I felt were really, really interesting to include, to maybe sort of give them a go, because I think, like I say, we're still at a really experimental stage of this deck. So I put in one Mod Dragon, as explained earlier. We've got Super Poly as a target for it. It's another way to out problematic monsters, and it's just another option to just make, you know, a fusion or whatever. I know you won't get your effects from that, but it's, you know, it's another way to clear up problematic cards. I've included one Toad. Quite a few people are talking about using this because you can make it. It's kind of a cute in the what's the word I'm looking for? Inclusion. Sorry guys, it's been a long day. Yeah, it's an interesting inclusion. And I think that, you know, sort of taking advantage of that negate effect is kind of handy, depending on what you're playing against. So it's just cool food for thought. It might not be perfect, but it's quite cool. Toad's a good card. We've got one Nightmare Unicorn. Again, you know, you don't get your Prankins effects from it, but you can benefit from spinning cards. I mean, Nightmare Unicorns are the most important extra deck monsters, I think, in this game. I think if you can include it, you absolutely should. Being able to chuck bits in the grave, which you can always, you know, put back with your cards in your main deck is really cool. The spell that shuffles them back. So, you know, you can kind of get that engine going. And of course, you can have problematic stuff with it. It does have a downward arrow, so you can always just build cards underneath. And then finally, we end on Boral Sword. This is the undisputed champion at the moment. This is the instant win button of this game. Being able to kill your opponent just from summoning this is ridiculous, and that is just how it works. It might as well just say on here, summon this card, you win the duel. Like, if they don't have anything to interrupt it, and more often than not they don't because you've taken care of it, especially when you've got cards that can clear out like whole back row, all of their monsters, and that kind of stuff. This is really, really, really important. I think you should play it if you absolutely can. I understand it is a very expensive card, especially for the more casual player. Of course, if you can't afford it, you can always just up your Prankins numbers, much the same with this. Toad is fairly cheap anyway. Mod Dragon isn't a necessity, and then of course the rest is your Prankins cards. You could up the numbers, you could use some of the other Nightmares maybe instead. You could maybe make some rank 4 plays. Now that Roxy's here, it's not very consistent, but if you are running Stratos and Prisma and that kind of thing, you can go into that fairly easily. If you bumped up to 3 Prisma for any reason, you could probably include Isolde, which is now super cheap, and use that to just search your other warriors, just to thin your deck if nothing else. Again, you can look at other options. So if you're looking at 4s, you could look at including the Utopia package maybe, although it's not going to be super consistent to get out. You can include all those cool toolbox monsters that are around that level. But that is basically it, guys. That was what I wanted to show you. It is just my sort of updated list of what I think might be quite cool. It's definitely not going to be the best that's out there, so please don't think by any means that I'm saying to you, go take this to YCS. You're going to fucking destroy it, because you're not. You're probably going to be in for a big shock, unless you're one of those weird players that can just play anything. But it is a cool basis, I think, for the deck. I think there's some cool, interesting ideas which might be quite fun, stuff that people aren't necessarily prepared for. The guy I would have faced in finals today for locals, for our top cut, he would have been running this. He actually dropped from the event at the end, so I kind of got a free win. But I would have been playing this, so it would have been interesting. And he'd done really well. He toppled some really good players. So this isn't his exact build, but I think this deck is definitely kind of a sleeper. I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes over the coming months, once the format develops, and once we get our next listing especially. And I think that this additional support of Roxy's is going to make a real difference. So that's it for the video anyway, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, big shout out to Mark at Manascrew. Go check out his Facebook page. Check out the links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed. And feel free to leave comments, likes, dislikes, whatever. Any reaction is good. Maybe just don't be a cuck and dislike me for no reason. Much appreciated, guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one. I'm afraid that's all we have time for in this video. If by chance you haven't had enough of listening to me waffle at you through a video about a children's card game, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. The links are on the screen, or if you're feeling really lazy, you can click the links in the description. While you're at it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content too. It'll make me smile, I promise. And who can ask for more than that? Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.